Right.
Mike?
Not all the
We're unmuted.
technical
Yeah.
stuff, so that,
You're good to go.
okay, the, February 24th special meeting of the Historic Sites and Facilities Board, come to order at 9 a.m. Roll call?
Margaret Smith.
Here.
Lou Howard. Here. Reba Bechtel.
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Davenport.
Here.
Chair Phyllis Adams.
Here. No public comment, I'm guessing.
I don't have anyone online. so-
Nobody has signed up.
Do you really need this agenda approved again? Or is that just part of your template?
Well, I think that you as an official board of the city would, if there was something on here that you guys couldn't get to, then the agenda approval, if you need to modify it. So I do think it's
Okay.
there.
Then, is there a motion to approve the agenda, short though it is?
I move. To approve.
I'll second. Okay. Comments? Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The minutes from our January 13 meeting. Hope everyone has had a chance to read them. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes for January 13th, 2025.
I second.
Okay. Any further comments? Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move it along. Conflict of interest? Conflict of interest, we'll go on to the agenda. General updates. I haven't any.
I don't have.
Staff have any? No, we're just moving right along. New business is the review and discussion of the draft work. Lou sent me some corrections regarding the cemetery. When this concept, when we were just a committee, was first formed, it was not the entire cemetery. It was what they decided to call the Pioneer Cemetery, which I guess was someone called the original, but I never knew the boundaries of it. And so that document that I had information from back then, when there were, that area probably does include about 600. But now there's, we're like what? About 4,300
Spaces.
spaces. They're not all usable except maybe for urns, but because they're on steep hillsides. But anyway, those changes were made for correction. So I guess we should go around and see if anyone else has comments. Michael?
I have several minor comments. On the first is on the front page. Once we're done with it and ready for it to go to city council, to add a date on the front page.
I try, we have room. If I make that text at the bottom smaller.
Okay, you have it on the next page anyway, I think, don't you, with your letter?
Mhm.
Okay, so that takes care of that.
Okay.
The second comment I had was, at a reference to the city council adopting ordinance 15. It's now in Article 4 of Chapter 5, just to say this is how we were created as an official board now. So it's basically just making a short note that says something like in 2024, city council adopted ordinance 15, adding a new Article 4 of Chapter 5 of the municipal code to create this board. It's more a matter for the public to have the benefit of knowing sort of who
How
authorized.
legitimate we are.
Yeah, basically, it's sort of, okay, this has been authorized, we've been authorized to do what we're doing.
Okay, I would, on the last page, the closing comments, there is at the end, appreciates the support of city council in formalizing the board from a committee to a codified and official board. Could it be added there, or do you think
It
it
could
should
be, it
be
could be there as long as it's somewhere in the document.
somewhere?
So we can point to, in case someone asks, for our own sake, to remember where is it in the code? It says this happened.
Okay.
And then the next suggestion is that to add a footer on each page that gives a page number.
If you know how to do it without
Yes.
making the first page number one,
Yes, I know how to do that.
well, then you can tell me, because I wanted page numbers in this.
Okay.
But I wanted to start with what the computer would think is page 3.
Where it says part one, historic sites and facilities.
Yes.
I can also do it. I should be able to get it, so that would be page one.
If this is a Word document,
It is.
there's commands on the ribbon.
Yeah.
It says the first page can be different, or you can decide when that first page is.
Yeah, I know. I tried every option I could find. I probably spent half an hour
Yes,
trying to
otherwise-
get page numbers in.
Word is frustrating, that program.
That part of it is. I love the just typing part.
I feel ambivalent about this is adding a table of contents.
I thought about that as well. And if we have page numbers, the two came together. When I couldn't make page numbers, I didn't see the point
Okay,
in doing a table of contents. And where would you put it?
before Roman numeral 1.
Okay. So on what was page 3?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, if we can figure out page numbers, I think a table of contents would be great.
And then the next comment would be to add a map that shows the location, because I think that already exists, that was created for the tour, wasn't it?
Well, of a sort, if one exists,
We do have a map that shows all historic properties, so it would just be a matter of me removing the ones that aren't city owned. So I could make it, and
Doesn't the Historic Preservation Committee have like a tour guide or something already?
the Historical Society is working on like a brochure thing, right, like a walking
Yeah,
tour, but.
it won't really work for this, no, because it's, it's a lot, it's a big job. And we're working on it, verifying all the information and doing all
we're
that,
talking,
but it's not meant, it's meant to sell, you know?
Sure.
We wanna make
But
money.
I can make a map that identifies all the sites in,
I'm not
Yes.
sure that would be of that much value, but we have pictures of them, and we have in each one, the location. the
I don't
site.
feel strong about a map.
it might be
I
useful
think
to
it'd
have
be
a
nice.
map. Even if it's not in the plan, I may just make a map
Well, I
anyway,
think
because
I
it's a
think a
good,
map is a good idea, like we talked about doing some kind of a brochure.
right.
But I'm not sure that this document is in need of one. This is not like what Lou just said, the Historic Society is working on something that people can buy and then conduct themselves around the city.
Sure.
This is not that kind of document.
Well, maybe what I can do, I'll create the map anyway, where we take off all the just like Hot Springs, that's a local designated, take that off and take the other ones that are not
But
historic sites.
even what we did for our walking tour was, I think, kind of gives someone an idea of the layout.
Sure,
of the
right.
location.
Yeah, so if
I just,
anyway, maybe what I could do, and this could be a good alternative to having it in the document, is once this is adopted, I'll have a page on the website that speaks, that has the plan, talks a bit about sites and facilities, and I can put a map on there as well. So that way they're
well,
kind of
and if
linked
you'll
in
notice
that
in the
way.
comments at the back, it says you're gonna do that.
Right. Yeah, I think in fact, we haven't yet put on the webpage we have all the other boards kind of on the
yeah.
homepage sort of thing. We don't have this one or
Right,
see.
They're all on staff record,
Well, but I mean on the, well, anyway.
probably learning how to create a new page
Eh,
for a board, but they're on staff record.
Well, I mean in this like, government area, like boards and commissions, it only has three. So if we can add the other ones, that would be good, but anyway, that's for us to deal with later.
Noted.
Okay.
Next was on the Jackson Monument, on that page in the first paragraph, fourth line, I think the word was should be is.
Notice the site is on the spot of Jackson
Yeah.
Discovery rather than was
Yeah.
on the site, but
What page?
The Jackson Monument page.
It would be nice if we had page numbers, wouldn't it?
Well, it's on the.
It's like the front of. Page 5.
The site is
Okay, here we are.
Okay, then on the Powder House page, to add a sentence at the end of work needed that architectural plans have been prepared for a small park to be located at the site. The construction of the park has not yet been funded.
I'll tell you why that's not, why the park wasn't. It can be.
it's on the powder.
Powder House.
Close to the
Powder
room.
House, oh,
In
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
work needed paragraph.
The committee as a group has not decided that that work is needed. In
Okay.
fact, the day we did our tour, you weren't with us, there was a brief discussion about waiting to see if there was really gonna be enough traffic to make it worth the expense. And so that's the explanation of why it's not there, not to justify it not being
Okay.
there.
What about just including the part that architectural plans have been prepared for a park? You know, that money's already been
Park.
spent.
Park, trust me, those plans would have cost the same with or without the park.
I don't feel strong about that.
To say, we could say, consider adding a park. If, in my mind, at least, and I don't know if we were all standing close enough that day to participate in the discussion. But I have to wonder, we need to find out if people are gonna, even with signage that we've talked about, and that's
Mhm.
recommended here, if there's gonna be enough visitation to justify. That's another place for Public Works to take care of.
Mhm.
Well, is that part of our, I mean, to, at this point, determine if it's justified? I mean, should it be brought forward anyway in some manner?
Well, the plans were drawn without any input from us. And the architects, and I don't know if they were instructed or approved to add the park. But the plans do include, as Michael said, a park, but it's not been funded. And again, I think as a group, we need to decide if we think a park's appropriate, and if we do, then Michael's original suggestion of putting the more wording in, I think makes sense, but we had not discussed it. So that's why, again,
I'm fine with that, without putting it in. Okay. Then on the canon, you suggested adding a sentence at the end of the first paragraph that the 2024, I think it was in 2024, the Carnegie site work included the area around the cannon. Wasn't there a new base put underneath the
that
cannon?
was the part of the landscaping.
Right, so I would just imagine that was done in relation to there being the cannon there.
No, okay. We've said that it sits on the grounds of the library. And we said that the library landscape was done.
Okay, but I don't feel strongly about it, that's fine, not to include that. And then I think Last point was in the standards paragraph on the general notes page.
Right, with this made up, yeah.
Is whether or not we want to list any specific standards from the Secretary of Interior.
In addition to what's there, because,
It's just being more specific and saying, are there,
well,
what specific standards are we
That's-
talking about?
as specific as saying all relevant city standards, that could be considered vague as well. The point is, per the ordinance, compliance and standards was something we were supposed to address.
Okay.
And like, as I said in the email when I sent this out,
Mhm.
this whole page is something that just came out of thin air into my brain.
Mhm.
Would you, instead of saying National Park Service, would you,
No, that's fine, because the National Park Service is the ones who administer the Secretary of Interior standards, so that's good enough.
well, tell me what you think should be there.
Well, I guess it was more of a question of, do we want to get into any of this? The Secretary of Interior has a number of different standards depending upon what the topic is.
Right.
Do we want to mention any specific ones? We don't need to. It's more of a question. Do we want to mention anything specific?
Well, some of the secretary's guidelines have to do with buildings, and of course, all the sites are not buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I use the more generic, more umbrella sort of term, park service.
Yeah, I think that's fine. The standards are usually referred to as the Secretary of Interior, but National Park Service is fine.
Well,
People will know what we're talking about.
park service, I think, is what's referenced in the ordinance, rather than secretary. of Interior. And in my mind, they're interchangeable, but.
I think what you have is fine. I don't think it needs to be changed.
Well, almost to the back of this. Anything else?
No, unless we were gonna discuss those other sections that you sort of mentioned about, it's like items A through G. If we're gonna discuss those items, those other things that have been sort of given to this board to do or recommend on.
A through G, you want
Well, there's a list of items, like D, I think, is sources of funding.
Oh,
As
oh, you're referring to the ordinance.
yeah, that's
Yes.
section 5-32, authority and duties. It says like rehabilitation projects, land maintenance, site enhancements, funding strategies.
Yeah.
Which is D.
So-
Exactly.
And on every property, we've listed a funding.
Well, I was wondering from the way it's written, it seems like the way the ordinance is written, they were probably saying more than just a specific item related to a specific project, but more a matter of identifying what kind of sources are out there for funding. To look, in other words, as you go through and look at each of the items, it says city budget or it says grants. Is it one of our responsibilities to say, okay, we should do some research on what kind of grants are available, or that's somebody else gonna do that?
I would think that is not. I don't know that we have the expertise or the knowledge.
Okay,
But we can see that some things should be covered by the city budget, the little stuff. Like the routine maintenance and all that. And some things would require grants, and there's one or two where I put in fundraising.
okay. No, it's more a question of asking about how involved are we supposed to get into those items that are listed in the
Well-
ordinance?
That's not been discussed, it's a very good question, but I have written grant applications. It's been a very long time since I wrote. But there are grant sources. Everybody knows about the State Historic Fund, and that's the first thing everyone thinks of, and you just can't always get them.
Mhm.
particularly time after time after time in the same community.
Did this one, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Had this ordinance everybody had already had before we started? Or am I just,
Our first meeting,
pardon?
the first meeting, the
The first
email went
meeting?
out, right, added it
I guess I missed it, cause I'm like, oh my, this is all interesting information.
Yes.
And-
When you stop, yeah, when you look, that's why, like I said, we hadn't even talked about any of this stuff in the general minutes page. But when I went back and looked at my copy of the ordinance and found we were supposed to be addressing all these.
Yeah, I mean,
How to
like,
make up a way to do it.
you know, the annual maintenance schedule they put together and the project plan that you laid out, that, I mean, that,
I think A, B, and C, we have done at least to some extent, A, B, and C. It's more of a question of D, E, F, and G. Are we doing anything further or no, we're done with that?
My opinion is, we are not in a position, nor I believe are we expected to say, not just grants, but this grant and this grant should be applied for. I think that's going beyond our scope.
I would guess that maybe as we're, let's say we say, hey, we've got a big project for the library and we need funding. As part of that meeting where we're discussing it, perhaps, perhaps that would be part of that discussion as opposed to just a broad.
You're sitting over there very quiet. Are you gonna be the grant person?
I am a grant person. Depends on the grant.
I would not expect this board to be writing any grants, certainly, but I think it would potentially be appropriate if you said, hey, we know there's a project on I don't know, gutters at the library coming up or something, and because in preparation of that, I'm on this potentially interesting grant program, or something like that. But I
I think
wouldn't,
if anyone wants to dig around and look for grant sources, they would be welcome to that. I really don't see that as a responsibility of this board.
Well, that's what, that's what I'm raising as a question. Are we supposed to be doing those
And
things?
I don't believe that was the intent when the ordinance was drafted and ultimately approved.
Yeah,
I'll take all the advice you guys want to give me, but what's really important though is you guys have these documents so that we know what you're trying to accomplish. And then if we see a grant come down the road, then we know that we have a project that has been vetted and approved that we can go after. And that makes our job a lot easier than trying to say, here's a grant, and then we go looking for something. It's easier to say, here's a list of everything we have, and that's what you guys are doing. And then as a grant comes, we go, oh, that can apply very well to here, or we can use that and wrap it with this and maybe do a couple things.
So we're really more of identifiers.
But not specific grants, which is what.
No, I mean identifiers for the project.
Yeah.
Correct, but I'll tell you, sometimes you guys will get an email or something, or go to a conference, or get something from a friend that says, hey, look into this. And you may look into it and say, you know what, this makes a lot of sense, and forward it to me or forward it to staff, and then we can take it from there. So it's not a hard wall. We value any input that you might have, because you're gonna hear different things than we're gonna hear. But we'll be doing the legwork.
But they're gonna hear a whole lot more things.
Yeah.
Than we are, unless we're sitting actively digging through the internet looking for sources. And so it, like I said, then, and what I'm hearing, I'd say as well, if anyone finds something, fine, but is it the job of this committee to find them? I don't think so.
and what about the other three items? There's the community engagements, same thing, basically, we're not doing that.
Well, it's addressed here, is that not adequate?
Well, it's the same thing in terms of, is there an expectation of more? I'm not saying it's supposed to be, I'm just asking as a question from the way it's written.
Is there expectation of more than?
In terms of how to make the public aware of what's being done, we've prepared a plan that's gonna go to city council. Is there an expectation to do something more to make the public aware?
Well, I believe so, and I believe it's addressed in the community engagement section of the general notes.
Okay.
What I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
I guess more specifically, how to do that. In other words, is it creating a brochure? Is it a public meeting to say, here's the plan? Does the public want to comment?
I think, of the ideas listed in the general notes. If we want to decide, we as a board want to talk about, let's talk about how we can encourage community engagement. That would be a topic for a meeting.
Okay,
for
that's what I'm asking, is what is it,
Oh.
what's sort of expected regarding community engagement?
Well,
And what you said is fine, is that maybe it's
Mhm.
something we need to talk about in a future
we
meeting.
would have to talk about details, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Well, we did, talk about, in the last meetings, we spoke about like, perhaps like bringing in like Boy Scouts to do weeding or other, organizations, the high school that has to do community service. So we spoke a bit about that all, I mean,
You're right, that would be community engagement, but this is more about getting, excuse me, getting the word out to the community, more than just what Dylan is going to put on the website.
Right. Well, and the other part of community engagement that's mentioned in the ordinance is about like educational programs and events and signage and things like that. So,
So we are gonna talk about signage at our next regular meeting. And the educational is the reason this last sentence under community engagement is there. Not saying we'll definitely do it, but just throwing out the possibility of doing presentations in local classrooms.
Mike, was your question specific about presenting the plan to the community to get engagement on the specific plan, or just broadly?
It's just more of a general question to understand, I guess, what is city council's expectation of what we're doing? It's really a question.
Oh,
It's not saying we should be doing this, it's saying, since it came up, the question is, okay, what is city council expecting us to do? So that 6 months from now, they don't ask us, well, where is this?
I would bet money that's never gonna happen.
Okay.
well, is this the, avenue or for letting the community know these, as far as potential expenditures coming down the road, say, that they know it all ahead of time, what we're looking at, so there can be comment on that?
And that's one of the important ones in terms of anything that we're doing is there should always be the opportunity for the public to be aware of it and be able to comment if they want to.
Right, rather than us just all of a sudden this is going on and people go, well, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, why do we need to do this and that, that kind of thing. So if we reach out or how, in whatever fashion, I fully agree with that. We need to be, because so many things happen and there's like a lag and that we want them to understand and support whether or not, is this a priority for the community? We may see it as certain things as a priority because we care about it. Overall, where it fits into the overall scheme of things is a different.
I think having an expanded section on the city website, which we have mentioned several times this morning, we come up with some sort of a pamphlet. We cannot make people tune in anymore.
No, we
can
can't.
You've been to council meetings, you know how packed this area isn't.
Well,
So there's a bit of that, but we need to do our part. We make the information available. If people choose to ignore it, that's, from experience, can be very aggravating, but there's not much we can do about it. So all these ways we're talking about is putting the information out there. But it's like, use an old cliche, leading a horse to water. you can put the water there, but you can't make the horse drink it. It's,
Right, well, I mean, in my opinion, in general, relying on, the website probably is only reaching at, you know, a percent. I have, of course, no data, but based on kind of feedback in that. So there's a lot of, I think, residents who really we need to.
Do you have a suggestion on how to reach that?
Well, the city can put out a letter, a notice on things.
And how many people read what comes in their mailbox?
Well,
Or how, yeah,
That's a different subject.
how
but-
you're gonna put it out there, and the cost to put it out there, if you're gonna mail it, or how you put it out there. In my experience, the public doesn't care the same way we care, or the council cares. And if they care, they usually reach out to us. I'm not saying they shouldn't be made aware, as in it's available to find. But to put it out there, I don't, unless we have a good suggestion of how to reach people.
I think it's true that probably most people who live in the city don't know that this board exists, for better or worse, but yeah, you know, other than we obviously advertise all the meetings, we have it on the website, we post it, you know, paper when there's public hearings, things like that. One thing I was thinking that could be, you know, would take some time for coordination and whatnot, but would be a good way to potentially get people more knowledgeable about our sites and facilities would be to do like a quarterly or biannually or just once a year, like a showcase event at each or at one site. So for example, the Powder House is being rehabilitated. Not that we want to draw a lot of people there when it's an active driveway, but I think it would be cool once it's open to do kind of like a ribbon cutting sort of event or something where we advertise it quite well and say historic sites and facilities. Bad example because obviously the work was started before this board was formally established, but in general, if there's ongoing work going on that we can showcase, I think it would be cool to kind of do that as community outreach potentially.
well, and now as I'm thinking about it, the idea of the educational angle and doing board presentations in local classrooms was kind of an afterthought when I saw that in the ordinance. This one sentence is there specifically to address that. But most of us know, if you want to get information out to adults, the best way to do that is to give it to their children.
Yeah, well, a perfect event might be at the Jackson Monument then, since it's right there at the
Right.
school.
That certainly could be, but something like that, and to get the kids excited, they'll go home and tell mom and dad. Who still won't watch our meetings, who still won't comment. You know, there are people, he said before, then Dylan, excuse me, just said, most people don't know this group exists. There are still a lot of people in this town that confuse the HPRC with the Historical Society and don't know the difference.
Right.
If they think about it, they do, but when they're complaining, they don't do. So I think we could have, theoretically, we could have a meeting where the only agenda item was to discuss possible ways to develop community engagement. I don't think details need to be here. And back to what Michael originally asked, as to what council expects. I doubt that there are high expectations. Because, well, I hope they all read it before they voted on it. I don't think a majority on council, but they're gonna read this and tell us it's a great job. Thank you very much. Bye. It's how the previous versions have been adopted. So,
I certainly think the on the ground rehabilitation projects, maintenance, enhancements is the
yeah,
priority.
yeah. And I also, from my discussions with the former assistant city administrator when the ordinance was being drafted, they put in a lot of stuff that they, as is common, as they found in other municipalities, comparable ordinances. not with any, because they saw a real need in Idaho Springs. So do they really expect us to do 15 things? Probably 2 or 3, and if we do others, then we could pass on that. Great extra effort, kind of.
Okay. And one of the things I was thinking of is, if the comprehensive plan is gonna be updated this year, there probably should be something in the historic preservation section that does refer to, this is one of the activities of the city in terms of historic preservation.
It is gonna be updated this year, so Lee and I are kicking it off,
It is.
so.
Okay. So did you get your questions
Yes.
answered and
Yes.
make all your comments? Okay. Lou, beyond the ones you sent? me?
Yeah, I sent you everything, and I think I probably just did it. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, mostly just minor little things, and then
well,
changing the cemetery because the 600 number. was wrong.
cemetery was about actors. Now, of course, I can count those. So now you look in the first paragraph of the cemetery, the eighth line. Platted area includes over, instead of 600, it will now say 4,000
Spacers.
grave spaces. And instead of saying at least 80 of which were originally, we will say some of which were originally designated.
That's all I ask.
And the other thing that Lou asked about on the cemetery page under work needed, complete it, third line down, complete and install new sign at the entrance. And she thought it better to say at the entrance on Highway 103.
Right, because there's 2 entrances, 3 entrances.
Most people can't find them, but yes.
Yeah, there are 3.
So the main entrance is on.
I always say that too, but people will go right instead of left. So-
Really?
And right now, we don't have a sign up.
So those were the changes that she suggested, most of which were for accuracy sake. Did you find
That's all I
any?
have.
Okay. Margaret?
Well, I have a question in terms of, the ordinance does not, as far as I'm reading and seeing, does not really give a format for the strategic plan,
You're right.
okay? I mean, these are things that are supposed to be contained in it, but it doesn't give us a format. So, I'm asking the question, for example, having the background information on these sites and facilities, I think clutters the meat of what we're doing. Maybe that could be in the beginning with the pictures and then subsequently, talk about it as a reference. But then when you get into the actual plan, I don't see the need to have, like I said, the background. I think it's good to have that. It's great. It's helpful to somebody like myself. I mean, it doesn't have all the years of information. So that's one comment.
Well, can I stop you there?
Sure, of course.
So each of these pages, even with larger pictures, they still all took one page. You would suggest removing the background, putting it elsewhere. And then only having, I just flipped it open and it came open to Central Hose House. All we would have is current condition, work needed, and suggested funding.
Well, okay, in the beginning here, I don't know whether this is considered where the pictures are. You have in the very beginning, I'm not saying how to do it, but I mean, it could be incorporated that. it's not really part of the plan. It's informational. But why does that belong in this? I guess I'm questioning. Like I said, it's great information. But I think, reading, let's get to the meat of it. And in reality, I mean, there's some of this information I didn't, no, we didn't, based on using the outline we were given. We didn't even, I didn't address funding strategies or any of that. That's my thought on it. I just,
I just
becomes
think,
too wordy in my book. What?
mine aren't very wordy that I did, so. But I'm just thinking as far as if I were a city council member, I'd just kind of like to have it all together, so when I read that, I would understand what we're saying about, like steep canyon statutes for lines. But I think that as a member of the city council, I think that's very helpful before I see what needed to be done or what was required, just.
I think also not in every case, but on some of these properties, the explanation sort of justifies or explains why the work is needed. It's not just the current condition. Paint is peeling, obviously we need to repaint. But what's the history of this? How long has it been sitting there like that?
But I mean, it could be, like I said, referenced in the beginning, but,
So you wouldn't take those out, you would just remove them from each individual page? Is that?
that's what I'm saying. It, like, get to what needs to happen. If people need to have, like you said, city council, it could still be available in another section or something. A section called, background information or something like that, that's all.
Oh, what do the rest of you think?
I'm sorry?
I asked what the rest.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Margaret, do you also, so you would say that this whole piece would be in a different section and only current condition and what needed would,
Well,
suggested funding would be on
I think that
the page for the plan.
well, yeah, I think that we're supposed to have a lot of other information that would be right there.
Like on the train, what additional information on the train page would you be?
Well, is that, okay, so back to where does the format come from for what should be on there? So maybe that's a point of discussion
Mhm.
as opposed,
For the plan?
Like we said, we followed the outline that Phyllis gave us. So, yeah, what else should be there on that, on each individual?
Do you have an idea of what you think else should be there?
I haven't thought about that.
Well, I will tell you one thing, going back then to these general notes at the back. Community engagement, compliance and standards, and sustainability and resilience especially. We could easily craft a short paragraph that addresses both of those issues, and it could appear repeatedly on every single page.
You mean like rubber stamped? It'd be
Yeah.
the same?
Yes, and because when I realized that needed to be addressed in the plan, and I was thinking how to lay it out.
Mhm.
I thought, first of all, I didn't want to make the picture smaller, because I liked the idea that we ended up with bigger pictures this time. I tried my best to keep them each to one page. And it would be redundant to say every time, following relevant guidelines. So that's why it's worded the way it is in the back. I just, all those other things that the ordinance says should be in, everything the ordinance says should be in this plan is in this. So you're talking about where reorganizing potential plan, which is certainly doable.
Well, we haven't, I mean, the other information you're referring to, as a board, we haven't even discussed.
Well, that's what we're here
Okay,
to do in part today, because I slammed them all together on one page and I said, and I sent it out to all of it, that I just made, when I saw that we had to address them.
so we still,
This is my creative right.
okay,
So,
so it's your plan to address those things in today's meeting?
well, we're addressing the whole preservation plan draft. That page is part of it. If you have questions or concerns or suggestions about that page, now is the time. So I don't particularly intend to direct a discussion of that page, but we certainly can if that's what everyone is interested in. I guess,
I'm lost. Exactly what specifically are we talking about?
Should the descriptions all be moved and put together in one section of just describing each of the sites or facilities? That like be one section itself,
Right,
and the description would not be on the individual pages.
yeah, I understand. So we'd have two sections, one, each section would cover those same properties. But I thought we kind of added, by adding the annual maintenance schedule on the project plan page, it seems to me like it is separated. I mean, yes, the background information is included in the condition and work needed. I think keeping it concise is the goal, not more spread out.
you don't so much object to the wording as to its placement. Is that, but I kind
The
of,
background information, I'd be in no position to question the wording on it because I don't have that information. I don't know. I just am talking about it. Like I said, take it. I'm looking for what's going on and what needs to be done there, and then first you have to read that. So if I want the background information, I'm just saying, you can just say, and this is just, in my opinion, my thoughts on when I look at it. Because back to this, we don't have any given actual format that has been agreed upon of how it would look. So, how any of this would look.
so let me just throw something out. At our very first meeting, copies of the existing plan were provided. And it's a very similar format to this.
Right.
This one is expanded a bit. And that's simply the format that's been used. I think this is now the fourth version of this plan over years. And the format's always been pretty much the same. And I guess I hoped, maybe presumed, that everyone would read that plan. The two of you that are new to this especially. And if something, I don't know, didn't look right or didn't understand why it was this way, that there would have been questions raised. And now it's happening. So
Yeah, I believe my thoughts at the time, I mean, it has been right along, was that this was somewhere already agreed, this is the format that we expect this to be in. And,
no, the format did not come from council, ever.
well,
Yeah.
wherever, from in the beginning of, what was it, 2008, when this was originally, something like that. It's not worth belaboring, if everybody's feelings are this, don't read, it's fine. I just was giving mine.
So
Input
to
on
your,
that.
just then, because I want to understand, as you look through this, from your perspective, all that other stuff gets in the way. It's good to have, it's interesting to read, but what you wanna know is, what are we gonna do?
Oh,
So,
yeah, what's this, yes.
So
basically.
I would direct you, as Reba referred, to the project plan. Find the property you're interested in and see what's gonna be done and when we suggest it be done. Do you have any other?
Comments? Well, you're already aware how I feel about, how you've taken my report and really boiled it down to, you know, taking all the substance out of it. I don't agree with it, and it's not to be confrontational. I feel that the details I presented were warranted. And I don't know why I didn't look at everybody else's, but, did not take the wording on either of the three submittals that I presented, and that to me is not acceptable.
Well,
So-
your biggest concern, I believe, was about the trend.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of superlatives. There was a whole lot of detail, which was good information to have. You bullet pointed, I think, all the work that had been done to the coach. Well, it was up there. If that format, with that level of information were to be used, every other one of these properties would have to be redone. Or should be, to,
They're different.
of course, the properties are different,
But
but
I don't
this,
feel that
this is not this is a document that needs to have some consistency and some structure. So to have one that goes on and others that ignore that, if everyone would like to redo it, and I apologize because I went looking, I thought I had saved the email when you first sent me, not this recent email, but when you sent your wording,
Mhm.
and I apparently did not save it. So I couldn't double check, but I remember seeing bullet points of,
Mhm.
all the work that they had done. I remember
Mhm.
superlative language, which is subjective.
It's
instead of-
what?
Subjective instead of objective. Not that any of us would disagree with, I don't know, remember the words you used.
Well, when I was put in, the crew on the project has done a magnificent job. That's my opinion. You're saying that's subjective.
Not that I haven't been up to see the folks, and you have.
Right.
But I know the kind of work they do, so I'm not saying that we would disagree with that. This is not, in my view, to be a document that has. We perceive to be presenting facts, not opinions. And that's a fine line, because
Okay.
obviously, this is our opinion about what the work.
Okay, so referring to the cemetery, it says current condition, thanks to the tireless work of volunteers.
And you're absolutely right.
Okay, so that's one thing. If you're saying that we shouldn't put
Okay.
any kind of, compliment or
You're right.
positive information in there, that's fine.
Okay.
That's one sentence out of everything I presented, that you boiled down to that they appear to be in good condition, understood about the asbestos, but the coach is presently off-site, final phase restoration. And that was it. And I feel that it certainly warranted, particularly with the efforts I put forth. And I think more information than to do that. I mean, you totally ignored and rewrote it. So that maybe needs to be a different conversation. Because like I said, I didn't look at what everybody else submitted. and what I don't have time for that. And I've been, since our last meeting, 2 weeks of it, I've been sick, I was sick. And that, and, I just thoroughly maybe don't understand why you did that. And
Well, I guess I don't know how to make it any more clear. Off the top of my head. I get what you're saying, and your reference to the cemetery incidentally is correct.
I think the point to the cemetery is that it's, out of all the projects, has probably had more volunteer input.
I think tireless is the word.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
that's true. You could take out time.
We're going back to the cemetery.
uh-huh.
Thanks to the tireless word. Tireless is an unnecessary word. No.
Well,
There have been,
But I think it's
what
important
is
to
wrong
point-
with it? I mean, what is
well-
wrong with saying that? I mean, I think it's great, the way.
I don't,
Lou
well, we can
has-
say, thanks to the work of volunteers, that still gets across the point that this has not been something the city crew's been out doing. This is people that Lou rounds up every year to come and help do it, and it's all volunteer.
And I did not write that, actually.
No, she didn't, that's my word.
Well, how much of everybody's input did you redo? Like I said, I don't have the time to go back and do that, but we submitted and I knew, you said, I don't know what word you used. But, kind of try to, I don't know if you didn't say summarize, and I don't know what the word was, or what your thoughts were at that time, but this was not what I expected. And
Well,
comments, anybody else?
I like the format that we have, but I thought all that detail, I went back and I reread your notes. I thought all that detail was very good information, and when I did both the Powder House and City Hall, I made like a supplemental page, which I wasn't expecting to get into the plan, but I was thinking I'd like to just sort of somewhere put this down, this additional information, so it isn't lost. And maybe it isn't in the plan, but maybe it's in another document where all that detail exists.
Well, when you talk about current condition, this is the most current at the time, it was the end of December, I updated. Now, to me, that is current condition, it gives some other, detailed information, a lot more involved, and work required, you didn't note about the canvas cover that they're going to need to order. Like I said, it's as though you didn't look at it, huh?
I understood that Silver Plume was gonna get that canvas cover. Did I misunderstand that? It's not in here because it's not something that the city's gonna do.
Who's paying for it?
I understood.
I don't know, I don't get
City
into
definitely
that.
pays.
I'm
Who?
sorry.
The city would definitely pay for a cover for when it's.
when it's here, but not the
But no, the
canvas.
canvas cover that they're ordering.
The interim. so they
Well,
can
the
get it
canvas
out of
cover
their shop.
may be here as well, because there may come, let's say that we have to bring it back prior
And then
to
have it
having
here.
a cover, or say that the covers, even in winter, you want to cover it because there's.
It might be a year or two before the fixed shelter
Right.
is ready to put the engine and the passenger car underneath.
I could certainly be wrong, but I believe that the discussion was that they would be happy to store it. They're not gonna be able to store it forever inside
Right.
because they'll have to work on other projects. So we either take it back or they'll store it in their yard, but if it's stored in the yard, we're gonna, kind of lose all of the.
Well, if we have to pay for a canvas cover, we should bring it back here. That seems obvious to me. I
Sure.
thought maybe they were putting a canvas cover because they're gonna reuse it for other trains later.
Is it better protected up there where it is now?
I mean, it's compared
Not
to
near the
here, it
traffic,
certainly
yeah.
won't have the same level of
Right.
traffic impacts.
What about sun getting on it? Is it more direct?
It's on the
sun?
north side there and it's kind of blocked by the mountain
The
quite closely, so it
mountain's
probably
right
does get quite a
Because
lot
what
less
does so much
sunlight.
damage is the sunlight, that the wood just has a terrible time standing up to the sun.
Yeah, I would guess that this would have more sunlight than
Oh,
silver
no
plum would.
question.
And
So
so,
plum as a whole,
right, I think as far as protecting the coach, it's unquestionably better there until we have the proper cover. Other than that, we don't get to present it to the public.
had I thought about it, the way, and again, I'm doing this from memory. The way I remember your wording, they are going to get a canvas cover. Said to me that they was Silver Plum, so I may have been completely wrong.
It looks like it just says a custom canvas cover will be ordered as a temporary measure to protect the coach
And it
once
doesn't-
it's moved out of the repair garage.
But it doesn't say who. And there's no problem. Adding that, I have. A suggestion. And it's for you and Michael, because I'd forgotten about your supplementary page that you had done. What if? City Hall, that's the only one you did the supplementary on, correct?
The powerhouse to.
I think I did it on both of them and.
Well, okay, then City Hall, Powerhouse and the train had a second page. Leave the existing pages as they are. And the second page is to have the detail. And in the case of the train, Margaret, it would include all your list of what's been done, what remains to be done.
Well, if, you're taking like the detail of the statuses and what was done, that part I wouldn't have a problem with. But, and that the I would have to look at it because it's even starting off with the engine first. In the current, to me, it should be let's talk about the coach first and then the engine part. Now, here again, and the work needed. Why it's reworded, I don't know. So. But the details of supplemental information about where it's at, and now that's dated anyway, so,
Well, this is a.
that's
This
gonna
plan
happen.
runs for a long time. What the status roughly now
Mhm.
of the coach will be past history by the time
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
has to be done again. This plan is supposed to run through 2028. I'm just offering a way to incorporate a lot of the information.
Okay,
And then I'm glad that you mentioned, because I didn't save it, it's not just her email I didn't save, I didn't save yours either. But I do remember now that you had done all this extra work and my only concern about the two Mike did and adding the one you did about the train is that we sort of, not sure the word I'm looking for. They should not be dramatically different styles. So take your information and his information without changing it, but just putting it into whether it's with bullet lists or paragraphs or whatever, that they should not look dramatically. I don't know if I made that clear.
I think the overall format and the addition of the table, I think that's good. By the same token is that research has been done, the detail's been done, and it would be nice to make sure we don't lose that. And making a supplemental page is one way of doing it. Like, one of the things that I was interested in is there are construction plans for both the Powder House and for City Hall, and I wound up calling the architect to get them so that I could reference what's the date when these plans were done. Because that may be something, when someone's reading this later, they might wanna know that there are construction plans that exist.
Well, I hope they would not presume the city would go up and do construction without plans, but whatever. Different story.
What I'd like to, suggest, if possible, is agreeable. I'll look at this, relook at this. Suggest that what I feel should be in supplemental, in my opinion, this is mine, right? And, relook at the, verbiage. Okay? Because and I've put big spaces in there. So it actually looks like a lot more than it is.
Right.
Because your spacing and mine are different. But then I will look at that and submit it, resubmit. Okay? But, okay, so moving on from the train though, on the other two easy items, the water wheel and the tunnel, you reworded it and it's the same information as I presented or submitted. And there was no substantial difference. And I didn't hear again, why did you reword it? You know, so.
I'm not sure, I'm looking at the tunnel page here.
I mean, there's not a lot to say about
No.
those things and,
There isn't.
you know, it's
Um,
given that, I mean, but,
I don't know what I rewrote. Because again, I don't have your email.
you didn't have it to reference?
No, I don't have it now, so I can't look back.
Okay.
Can't look back and
Because I was
see,
gonna say.
but this paragraph that's here. Is pretty much cut and pasted from that document I mentioned before that I had from the beginning. So I'm not sure what,
Well, I stated the water wheel needs some repair, the extent of the repair is unknown. Well, I also, in current conditions, I shouldn't have described where it's located, that probably,
yeah,
but
that's,
anyhow, I put it in like this site is located on the south side of Clear Creek, just west of the waterfall, across from the walkway.
my wording.
But in your background information, you know, you describe it differently, but maybe that's
Do I
legacy information. you
Do I
know.
describe it incorrectly?
No, I'm saying
No.
that's that part, you know, it's just different, and maybe that's legacy from other prior, whatever, information. But you said, so then you go, the water wheel appears to be in fair condition, closer inspection may prove otherwise. Same thing, okay, work needed, complete a inspection, this is yours, personal. And you went into the staining and waterproofing, but I said complete required repairs and comprehensive rehabilitation may be warranted. As it is primarily constructed of wood, a regular maintenance schedule should be developed and followed. Additionally, about the new signage. I wouldn't have gone into about the, I mean, there's no additional information there other than you put in about the waterproofing and staining, which I'm not even sure if that's the regular maintenance or
It
not.
is.
It would seem like that
It
would
is.
be, you know, so I might as well not even submit anything.
Well, that certainly was not the intent, Margaret, and I'm sorry. you
Okay,
feel
well,
that.
I,
Again, I will ask on all three of you. Is there anything currently in here that's inaccurate? On the water wheel, the tunnel, or the train? Did you find anything that you thought was inaccurate? different, certainly, but inaccurate.
Well, when you say the water wheel appears to be in fair condition, that's
Well,
seems
that's-
more like an opinion.
It does from the walkway. You can't tell until you get over there.
No, right, and we didn't have any information available at that point, and I don't know as far as the, what do you call this? Public Works, I guess, is responsible for that, no idea about when somebody will really do a thorough check on it.
Probably in April, when they're ready to turn it on, so it's sort of take the Christmas lights off and have it start to turn again.
Yeah.
Depends on the weather, of course.
Well, and there's so little information there. I mean, it required on the, like the tunnel. Yeah, it's irrelevant as far as I'm concerned at this point. The difference, here again, though, it's just different than what I submitted. For no added value, I would say.
I would say no detracted value either. So,
Okay, let's not,
so you rewrite,
I'm gonna,
revisit,
Mhm.
reword as you want your supplementary.
Andy, I'm gonna then see how that also impacts the current condition work needed.
And Mike, if you would send me again, because I didn't say anything, your supplementary information on City Hall and
Yes, I can do that.
anything else, Margaret?
Oh, yes, let me just add this for the record. I did look at the architectural, what's the name of the company, Haynes, or
Pain.
is that how it's pronounced?
Uh-huh.
I did look, well, Dylan had sent us all the, right after the last meeting, the plan. It was very difficult for me to be able to see in detail everything, which says I need to look at a real thing, you know, full-size document, plan, drawings, to make any comments on that. Andy was gonna contact them to see what the status was, because he said I think it had been since October or early, something like that, since since that information was submitted.
On the powder house or?
No, on the cover for the
Oh.
train.
Okay.
And I couldn't get I couldn't, assess anything that I see, like, I couldn't give anything back as far as I can't provide feedback onto anything that I see that might be helpful at this point, because I really couldn't, I struggled to be able to read it. So I think that, I don't think, I will follow up, and with Andy, and also if those plans are available, I'd like to look at them. Maybe we could look at them together with your background.
Sure.
To see about driving the cost down. And see where we think that, hey, this isn't necessary, perhaps, because we gotta get moving on this, and I don't know where the city is on funding on it, and all I know is, hey, it's currently as it stands, it says 1.5 million roughly, or whatever. I think there's one a little bit lower than that. But this can't just shouldn't just swirl. Is there anything, Dylan, that you can add to that? Because I'm not giving you much information. I'm just telling you what I don't know.
I don't have an update. I don't know if Andy reached out to the Haynes or what the update is. I know I saw the Haynes at a conference. And they said that they needed to talk to Andy about a bunch of stuff. And I said, well,
Is that recent?
yeah, that was at the end of January. So, I mean,
And
You
I
say
would-
the
and
23rd.
Yeah, it's almost.
Is it out of, is it, I could talk with Andy about it, but do we have the full-size drawings here?
I would say no, and I can print them. Biggest we can print here is like 11 by 17.
Right,
which
no,
is
it
really helpful.
needs
We
to
don't
be
have a-
architectural drawings,
Well, they're
size
not-
drawings or whatever.
And they're not even at a point, like they had just created, they're not a full set of architectural plans. It was basically just their concept drawings, like it
Right.
wouldn't be able to be built off of.
No, I understand that.
I mean, I could certainly get them printed, but I'd have to get it from the print service, you know.
Is it up to us to choose a design or help with that?
I think certainly would be a recommending body.
But there's nothing about which to recommend. They brought their conceptual is probably a good word for them, drawings to city council. And council talked about it and did this when they saw the price. And I remember Tim Hain specifically asking council, well, what do we do now? And he was told, wait. Because they have to figure out how they're gonna pay for it even less expensive. And as we talked about at our last meeting, grants are wonderful, but they can never be absolutely counted on until you have the money in the bank. So it's fine to say, this is our top priority, we have to get moving on this. Everything else has to stop until this is done. That doesn't help if you apply for grants and don't get them. And with the current situation, where some of the grants might come from, well, who knows?
So what are you,
Well,
what are you actually saying?
what I'm saying is, it's fine for us to say this is even if this whole board agrees that that structure is the top priority, and we haven't made that decision, but let's say we had,
Right,
that's beside the point. If the city can't find the money to do it, there's no plans for us to pass judgment on. I'm not sure it's appropriate for us to be looking and in effect, second guessing the architects on how things could be changed. I think the big difference was whether it was a wood structure or a metal structure.
Well, they
Well,
only
that's-
proposed two metal structures,
Yeah.
and so I think they had at one point said, well, we'll circle back once we have like a plans for a wooden structure that'll require more maintenance, but might be cheaper, but that's been a while now, to your point. So clearly the needle hasn't moved much in the last few months. I will say, I think, yeah, other than pursuing grants, we have no funding for it for 2025.
And,
Yeah.
and the other thing
That's
is,
a city.
it's likely the city or there'd have to be some other source to come up with about a third. Because if it's a state grant, it's probably maximum 2/3 of the cost.
Sure, and I think there's probably. The city certainly can budget potentially enough for it, but it would be the 2026 budget. And so that would be part of, once this work plan is established, Andy's big goal is that we then start working towards what budget item, one of the goals. What items are needed in the budget so that we can actually bring some of these to action. And, you know, I don't know if the budget is $300,000, which is what they need for the $1 million option. And that doesn't include all of the park work,
No.
but anyway.
And it's not just state grants. I suspect this is going to be more easily funded with a series of small ones, which can be leveraged against one another, use this one as the match for that one and.
well, I'm sorry.
No.
Well, I see, you and I, we have different perspectives on our responsibility here. It would seem like that, as far as what we could offer, to help, it certainly would seem, Guy, you can help me out here. The more information that we have kind of firmed up a little bit as far as what we plan to do, scope of the work, doesn't that, or I would think that would facilitate getting the grants as opposed to, we gotta get a cover, blah, 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 you know.
It kind of works in two ways generally. One is it allows staff to know what they're looking for and the problem they're trying to address financially.
Mhm.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, it does show to the granting agency that there is broad agreement through bodies that are formed by the governing body, and it's been reviewed by the citizens, that they're in agreement with funding this. So that's, any information that kind of works to that is advantageous for getting grants. That said, good luck on federal grants these days.
Yeah.
State grants are generally through historical society, but there are private grants out there from foundations and endowments too that do some of these things that are require a little higher match from municipalities or nonprofits, aren't as substantial, those types of things.
Well, I refer to, our ordinance, the strategic plan being A1. A2 is oversight of maintenance and practices and project review. The board shall participate in the maintenance, repair, capital improvements, and any forms of work carried out on the city's historic sites and facilities as follows. And then there's a litany of information here. That's where it would seem to me that the expectation was to do more than just, here's what we think we need to do, kind of thing. I mean, Dylan?
I can certainly talk to council about what the.
Well, I mean,
vision is.
in reference to that item to the ordinance, as far as our responsibilities go, because Phyllis's reference, like what is it our responsibility to do and how far and all that. And that is a whole lot more than what we talked about to this point. I mean, I know we're working on the plan, but this would suggest that we are supposed to be more involved, particularly at capital improvement. I guess that would be considered capital improvement.
Yes.
So, I mean, we're not out of line getting more involved with that, and
I didn't mean to imply, and I don't think I said that we would be out of line to do it. Participate, which you just read from the ordinance, is another one of those vague terms. It could be argued that we are participating in putting this plan together, and that's it. I am concerned about reviewing a set of plans that was presented as a concept and not approved and sent away with thanks for now, and then stepping in and reviewing it and telling them how it should be changed. I just don't.
Well,
We have a member with architectural background, but we have 2 professional architects already working on it. And I just, part of me says, as a concerned citizen, as a concerned board member, you want to do it, have at it. I don't see it as a role of this board.
Well, and I think what I would foresee as potentially the appropriate avenue would be, like, in the past case, the Haynes came to council and said, here's our set of plans, what do you think? Here's the funding, what do you think? Can you fund it? Things like that. If they have new plans, once they have new plans in place, it won't go to council as a first step. It'll come here to assess, well, is this feasible? Does it work with everything that's in the ordinance? How is it? Okay, it's $400,000. What's some ideas for funding? Because it looks great, but if you can't get.
You can afford it, it doesn't matter.
So it seems like what's needed now is just to try and get further information either from Andy or from the architects, just to know where we're at. And then sort of doing a little prodding at the same time.
Right,
Since-
well, and I'll talk to Andy.
well,
and
they have
see.
no incentive to look at cost savings.
Well, except for the council's hiring them to do the work, and council said, we can't afford this, you have to find a cheaper design.
Right, but that's,
These are.
I
two
feel
archi-
it's up to the city to be taking action and showing them, hey, we're looking at this and we're looking at that, as opposed to they throw out a number, 1.5 million. Oh, we've got it down to 1.2. You know what I'm saying? My experience has been contractors will come in, and unless you start asking them questions and getting into it, they make it look like they've saved you money, but they maybe really haven't, because maybe we should have been down there to begin with, type thing. So, I really don't like just letting a contractor, whatever, just, it's a starting place.
It would be like saying, what can we get for 300,000?
Yeah.
Well,
Show us what we can get for
Yeah.
500,000.
Yeah.
and I don't entirely
Exactly.
disagree with Margaret, and I've worked with these architects before. And I can assure you that their default is to the most expensive, whether it's ceiling light fixtures or anything else. They are excellent at restoring historic properties. They should call themselves historic architects.
They're very knowledgeable.
Honestly,
in terms
very
of-
knowledgeable, very experienced. But it is true, and we went through this at the library. You could have two ceiling light fixtures that looked identical. One is from this, blah, 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 whatever. $500, the other one's from Home Depot for $150. Which one are they gonna pick?
Mhm.
The $500.
Sure. Right.
So you're absolutely right in that respect, not to cast those same aspersions on
No.
everybody, but I know it's true about Tim and Chris Hain. However, I think, based on what Dylan just said, and I certainly hope he's correct, that when plans are resubmitted, they will come here so that they can go to council with our recommendation. I think that's maybe the time, and I think and I have no idea when this will happen, but I think those recommendations could include, these are our questions, does this really have to be, could this be, fill in the blank there. Rather than, I don't think it's our place to go to the architects and say, hey, as Reba said, what can we get for $500,000?
No,
It should be staff that's asking that question though.
Yes.
Because if we're gonna put it in the 26 budget, that's right around the corner.
yeah, it's.
So,
that's for
again,
sure.
this is a roundabout way to get back to indirectly what I was saying before. I don't see a review of the conceptual plans we got as something this committee needs to be involved with. You want to look at them, as I said, you're a concerned citizen, you're a taxpayer or property owner.
Mhm.
Michael is a architect,
Mhm.
as a concerned board member. You want to do that, fine.
And I'm happy to get them printed on 24 by 36.
Well, they should actually provide a copy.
Well, I could just speak to that building permit wise, it's all electronic these days, so really those big giant rolls, they're outdated
But we
anymore.
can require them. It's just at this early stage, we're only reviewing it for the cost estimate.
And I will also tell you, if they provide them, you'll pay for them directly or indirectly.
Well, the other thing is you'd be able to put it up on the big screen anyway. In other words, it was on your computer, you would be able to make it that big on the
Like-
screen.
11 by 17 might be big enough, possibly. It's like this.
If you want to.
Well, if we have the proper, it submitted in the proper, format,
Electronic.
can take it to the place and get these size drawings done for a lot less than probably what they would do too. So anyhow, those are all great suggestions, and I'm just saying in summary that it would behoove us to be looking at it, at least get an understanding of, other than what broadly they've already submitted, which nobody's reviewing anyway, just to kind of get going. It's kind of like getting this train going. And that's where I'm at. So, for what it's worth.
Well, I'll talk to Andy to see if he's already reached
I
out
had
to the
meant to
Haynes
call
and
him
if-
actually,
Let's let staff handle it, so.
Well, I mean, either way, if Andy hasn't reached out, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, what's the progress on updated plans for the train cover? Is there work being done or is it on hold?
My guess
So-
is they're gonna say it's on hold based on what they've already counted.
and here we go, and it.
Yeah, well, when their employer, city council, says, wait, why would they be spending
They
that?
said, wait,
In effect,
Well,
Tim asked, what do we do now?
what city, how long ago was that meeting that they said, wait?
those are the meeting when that, on September 9th,
Yeah.
when I sent those plans back in.
And the city council said, wait?
Well,
That's what I'm asking.
I don't think they use that word.
Minutes.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, and so I'm not sure how Tim
I'm not, yeah.
interpreted it, but I do know that Tim asked, okay, what do we do now? After all of council had hyperventilated over the cost. And
Well, maybe
kind
we
of-
can verify, like, was that the official stance on that, find that out, or?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm gonna talk to Andy and if he hasn't already reached out to them, I'm going to reach out to them. So
All
if
right,
they say, well, the direction we got was this, then I can confirm it by watching the meeting
Well,
again.
regardless of what was said, it's about how they heard it. You know, That's
okay.
always the way it goes.
Because
I
they
have to
certainly
leave.
said,
Cause I do have to get to Pueblo by 2:00, so I'm sorry if I, is
We
can
should
I be
be
excused? I mean,
Oh, of course.
certainly, yeah.
okay, thank you. If there's,
I'll,
drive,
if you,
it's not that far, it's just you go through,
Well,
all the
I
different
can-
routes. Yes,
so Margaret,
Yes.
whatever, I mean, I know you have a business and.
Yep.
You have this little jaunt to Pueblo and so on and so
well, I
forth.
have a home down there
But,
that has had 5 feet of water in it from busted pipes, 2 years ago at Christmas. And the heating system just got put in October. It's been uninhabitable.
we cannot,
That's just one more thing on my plate, and it's been a big drag. It happened 5 months after we opened the wine bar, so it's a
Well,
lot, but
my
anyhow.
point is, we can't get this to council until it's done, and so I understand how much you have on your plate.
Oh, no,
I
no, I
don't
get it.
envy you a bit of it, but I would ask you to get that
Mhm.
to me as soon as you can. Michael will send his stuff. I'll get it together and send it out to everyone, and we'll we don't need to have another meeting. You can just say, with the changes, and I've made a list, I have 5 listed here. Changes to make to the existing document. We'll
Yeah,
add basically 3 pages. Supplemental information. I'll send those out to everyone, and I would still very much like to get this to council in March. If possible.
oh yeah, we're the end of February, aren't we?
So I'm just asking you,
Yes.
with everything else.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't
Try-
using that as a.
No. I acknowledge it, but please just get it to me as soon as you can.
Right, and I owe you some pictures, and that was the other thing I had requested, they send it to me, the updated pictures of, from the train. And I obviously haven't been able to get up there and no desire to get up there for most of the weather that we've had.
Yes.
And also without the pumpkins on the,
Well, we got
Okay.
that. I found one historic.
well, yeah, but, whatever. Okay, well, I appreciate it, everyone. Have a good rest of your week and day and all that.
Safe travels.
Okay. Trash, thank you.
So I only have one quick thing to note on our project plan. Under cemetery, we don't have anything in any of our years, so, but since we're still doing the sign at the entrance, don't we want to at least put that in there?
Oh. Good catch.
There's also nothing for the Jackson Monument, but there's no real work.
There's nothing
needed
there
for
but
that.
annual maintenance.
So,
It's under annual maintenance.
so new entry sign.
So cemetery,
What do you want to do with the
the
Put
interest,
the sign, the entrance sign, that's,
Oh, the
hopefully
city
we-
they're working on
I
it.
know, but we should show it in 25 that it's happening.
Okay.
I mean, 25.
okay,
I know it's in the works, but I don't know how far in the works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
neither do I.
We should document it.
and that raises a question I had when I put this together, these blanks. And of course, now we've at least filled in one on the cemetery, thank you. But Jackson Monument is blank because we don't know of anything between now and.
Do you hear that?
Trip it out.
You're
Sorry,
tripping.
yeah.
You're tripping.
Okay,
Okay. It's good. Put that in minutes, clerk tripping.
yeah, okay.
Anyway, it looked funny. So my first thought was, there's nothing there but routine maintenance, at least between now and 2028. I could just delete those. Then it would look like we forgot them. So then if I just put routine, just so the blanks are filled, just for appearance sakes, except they all have routine maintenance and we're not putting routine in anywhere else.
No, I don't think
So
we should
what-
put anything, we don't have any plans for Jackson. I think it looks good to have one item.
Yeah, that doesn't.
It doesn't
Need
mean
something.
anything.
You could put like TBD or something, if you wanted to fill the space, but I
Well,
think
that-
blank
that's-
is,
So and I played with it different ways and printed it out and said, no, this looks stupid.
So on the cemetery, the expense will probably just, every year, they put in $5,000.
Yeah.
And so the sign is probably gonna be under just that $5,000.
At least then it's noted that it happened this year.
Yeah,
Well, this maybe will improve it.
what's that?
The sign's been in the works for a while.
Well, last summer they knocked it down. It wasn't gonna do any good to put it up again anyway if they had it done. Cause it was gonna get knocked down again with all the construction
So anyway, that's why there are blanks.
and they actually, the construction company, my understanding is they paid some money towards the sign too. So I mean,
yeah.
It was big of them, yeah.
well, and confessed up because you didn't know for sure if it's the rafters or the construction companies. So it was good.
We approved.
I think the blanks are fine, especially with part 3, the annual maintenance schedule, because it's clear when you turn the page that there is work being done everywhere, every year. It's just that we don't need any big noted projects because it needs to be inspected and maintained.
Most of them only need inspection. There's nothing to be done on the Canon except look at it.
Right,
But then, of course, if they find something, that's why I put a rather forceful second paragraph. To say that inspect means more than just a cursory look. Because I think, history has shown that it's well to impress that sound people. Otherwise, they'll drive down Minor Street and say, the raster's fine, the Canon's fine. Because from a slow drive-by, while they're watering the plants, they don't see anything wrong. And it really needs to be more than that.
right.
It
They
needs
probably
to be
need,
impressed upon them and people need to be made to do their jobs. What a concept.
agreed, and I think we need to have some sort of documentation each year, like the raster is a good example, you take a picture of it. And now if it's changed in the next year, now we know that it's clearly changed.
Well, I think,
Yeah,
the
yeah, you
law,
have it in there, which is great.
which was kind of an afterthought. That's a good old, I'll add that. But I think, that should be, so our position is to recommend, council needs to insist that there be that kind of a law. It's not our place to insist.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't think this group, anyone in this room right now has the teeth required to force another staff member to do anything, so.
Okay.
But if we recommend it, then clearly Done
we've
your
done,
job,
and we've done our part.
and I can then continue to pester people about it until it gets done.
If staff and ultimately council chooses to ignore our recommendation, then at some point, honestly, I have no problem coming back to council and saying, why did you have us do this?
Right.
You're clearly not paying attention. That is not something I would do 2 months in, but a year from now, if I see that things are being done, you conduct.
Hmm.
I'll be on your public comment.
They probably want that, you know what I mean? I think that's part of this,
They
is just
probably want it, but
you
they
know,
don't like it.
a lot of eyes trying to find all these things, you know, more eyes the better.
Oh, I do want to, just thinking ahead to our next meeting, I guess I sort of have a general update. There's a local group from the high school that is looking for sort of like, I'll call them capstone sort of projects, kind of beautification projects or sustainability projects. And need to look up when the deadline is, but I was thinking specifically, we've had some talks about beautification, like little projects with murals or gardens or whatnot, but there may be a way to integrate some of our maintenance / interpretive signage type stuff in with that. So I'm gonna put something together that tries to perhaps encourage that, and then maybe we'll have something in April at our regular meeting to talk if there is any synergy.
If the time works out.
Yeah, that I'm not sure about, but like a perfect example would be I think everyone broadly in the city wants to improve the underpass back here to go over to the water wheel. With better lighting and maybe, well, you know, mural or painting or something that makes it really inviting rather than just this dimly lit underpass. But if we can also incorporate into that the improvements for signage at the Blue Ribbon Tunnel, you know, it's like a nice.
Well, I think definitely in April, we'll need to talk about our ideas for signage. Whether they are small signs or big signs, we need something that is consistent on all of these properties.
Right.
Whether it's the city seal, comes to mind, or just Idaho Springs Historic Site, those words, whatever. And then talk about wording, because there's a big difference. We talked about having multiple signs, at the end of things for the train, because there will be the walkway, so we could have 4 or maybe 5 along the walkway. And there's maybe more to tell about the train than there is about certain other things.
There actually is a transportation sign grant.
But they're not all transportation.
No, but I'm seeing for the train, in terms of having more there than a standard identification.
And where is this transportation sign grant?
I've got the information at home in terms of, I have a link to the website as to look and see more information about what it is.
The State Historic Fund will fund signs, but they have to approve what they say.
Yeah.
And that kind of bothers me.
Although that would be a good grant application to the state for signs, because they do quite a bit of
Well,
that.
Andy has his mind made up that we're gonna use State Historic Fund money to fix the engine. He said that several times at council. So I don't know where we'll be left if we get turned down. There was a previous thought of getting state historic funds for that. There was a meeting with, I don't know who, someone at State Historic Fund. And the city was told, no, we funded that several years ago, we're not gonna fund that again. That is the extent of what I know about it, but I just remember thinking, it sounded to me like John was letting himself be pushed around. Anyway, we'll need to come up with what we want, we need to decide, you know, depending on how much there is to say about the train, how many signs would there be? Clearly, one is enough for the tunnel. And then remember that a lot of these have those brass plaques, so they've got some sign, so in that case, maybe we only need a small sign with whatever this logo is. Just to say, this is an Idaho Springs historic site.
Right, so some signage.
So those are the,
It may
those
be a
are,
marker instead of a sign. I mean, that may be one way of going.
well,
In terms of it's a less expensive way to go initially is to get a standardized marker at each site.
well, I think we want to provide information. And it seems redundant to get the marker and then go back and replace it with a sign. Anyway, that along with whatever Dylan, if this high school group, if the timing works out, that's at this point, probably our April agenda.
Also, the powder house is kind of a big cleanup job. There's an awful lot of trash there.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely true. And they haven't started on anything yet because of the weather, but they're still planning to start once kind of the winter breaks, which will be good.
It'll break a couple of times before it's really broken.
Well, that's
July.
true.
They worked up here before.
Or is there anything on the signage topic that you'd like me to prepare ahead of time, like templates from other communities or anything like that, or just kind of we'll come in and have a blank slate?
I think we need to come in with a blank slate. I think, maybe 3 weeks before that meeting to just remind everyone, because now Margaret's gone and
Sure,
will not know what all that I've just babbled on about.
yep,
Just to remind everyone.
right, kind of to say like, here's the agenda topic, here's
Yes.
kind of the topics that we
And so
discussed.
please give some serious thought to what you would think. And then, so we come up with the format, then we decide about wording.
Okay, and I might just include like in the packet, just to have something there. Maybe I can take some photos of some of our existing plaques, just in case someone forgets what they look like, and maybe our logos, kind of approved logos, that way if you want a sense of maybe this logo would look good, or this one would look better, or the seal, or.
One of our logos is the water wheel, and that's only one of our properties.
Right,
Thought of that. That's why just the words Idaho Springs Historic Site may be sufficient, but we'd stress, and it's mentioned in the plan as well, that these all need to be of the same material, they'll be of different sizes.
right, but if there's, like clear cohesion across all sites.
It's a,
Yeah, if there's a clear kind of like template, if you will,
Yes.
that we create so that when a new sign is built, it looks the same.
and I will tell you just one other thing, because that got me thinking about the materials. The billboard at the east end of town is a vinyl wrap. And it's been there for about 15 years. So that might be a way to go. As opposed to paying for wooden signs that have to be repainted every few years, or metal signs that are incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it still looks quite good after all those years.
Forever. It's not as bright as it was, but it's,
Sure.
you still can clearly tell. So that's a good local example of one of those things. All right, anyone else have anything? I told my husband I'd try to get home in an hour. It is. Oh, right,
It's 10:46.
okay, it's minute time, 10:46. We're adjourned. Thank
Right,
you all.
yeah, thanks everyone. And if you want, once those edits are made, if you wanna, I'm happy to troubleshoot the page numbers and put the contents and things
Well,
like that.
I understand what Mike says, yes, there are ways, not a one of them worked the way I wanted them to work.
Well, anyway, I'm obviously around, so if, however you can best utilize my services, I will definitely be able to figure it out.
Because that's the only reason we don't have a table. They're pointless without page numbers.
Right.
Everybody going to work?
Yes,
Have a nice day at work.
thank you. You too. I always think, oh, maybe I won't have to go